Okay, so picture this. You're like walking through the woods, right? And you come across this like old stone wall, kind of crumbling and covered in vines. Super cool, but also kind of eerie, you know? So you pull out your phone, check your map app.
And the property lines are completely blurry.
Exactly. Like who was here before? Where did their land end and the next one begin? It's kind of like a mystery hidden in plain sight.
Well, that's where our friends, the cadastral technicians, come in. They're basically the ones who figure all that out. It's like they're solving a puzzle, but instead of pieces, it's property lines.
And I always thought they just like knew which end of a measuring tape to use. We are so diving into the world of cadastral technicians today, and we've got this awesome career development platform, RoleCatcher, as our guide. It's got all these articles and resources about the job market. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And trust me, this career path, there's way more to it than meets the eye. We're talking drones, AI, the whole shebang.
Okay, drones, AI. Now, this is what I'm talking about. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. RoleCatcher's got this career guide, Cadastral Technician, and it seems like the perfect roadmap. So, what exactly do these, like, boundary wizards do?
So, in a nutshell, they're the ones creating the maps and blueprints that tell us who owns what. But it's not just about drawing lines on a map. Imagine you're out there taking new measurements, using high-tech tools like drones, and then you take all that data and make it part of these official real estate records. They're ensuring that what's on the map matches what's actually on the ground.
It's like they're bringing order to what could be total chaos. No wonder accuracy is so important in this job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one tiny mistake could change property values, mess up development projects, even impact historical preservation efforts. Their work is way more important than people realize.
Speaking of important, RoleCatcher's guide mentions something called the real estate cadastre. What is that exactly?
So it's not just some old file cabinet, right? It's more like a library. But for land ownership, for a whole community, it's how we understand how property boundaries have changed over time. Sometimes we're talking centuries.
Wow, so they're not just technicians, they're practically historians.
Kind of.
No wonder RoleCatcher lists reading comprehension as an essential skill. Who knew those history books would come in handy?
Right. They could be deciphering old deeds, handwritten notes, even local folklore, all to figure out where one property ends and the next one begins.
That's so cool. Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're totally intrigued by this whole technology meets history vibe. How does RoleCatcher help them figure out if this is the right career path for them?
Well, there's this pros and cons list. It's actually kind of fun. Like, would you rather have good salary potential or a job that needs lots of physical stamina? Would you rather be stuck inside all day or have opportunities to work outdoors?
Okay, good salary and working outdoors sounds pretty good to me.
Right. Then this might be the perfect career for you. But seriously, RoleCatcher does a great job of showing both the amazing parts of the job and the, well, not so glamorous parts.
And what about those less glamorous parts? What are we talking about here?
Well, the guide mentions it can be repetitive and monotonous sometimes. You know, when you're dealing with massive amounts of data or really intricate maps, you've got to have a love for the details and a whole lot of patience.
So maybe not for someone who needs constant excitement then.
Maybe not every single second. But uncovering a long-lost property marker or using cutting-edge software to map a tricky landscape, that has to be exciting.
True. So for those who are into this whole world of details and problem solving, what are some of the must-have skills that might surprise people?
You know, aside from the tech stuff, RoleCatcher really emphasizes being good at your native language.
Seriously, I would not have thought language skills were so important for a job that seems all about maps and measurements.
Think about it, cadastral technicians. They have to explain these really complex technical things to all sorts of people. Clients, lawyers, government officials. They're the link between the world of maps and the everyday lives of people impacted by those maps.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about explaining what they mean in a way that everyone understands.
Exactly. And sometimes you need some serious diplomacy skills, especially when you're dealing with property disputes or navigating those sensitive historical issues.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this job needs such a unique mix of technical stuff, communication, and even history.
Definitely. And this is where it gets interesting. RoleCatcher has this article, Beat the Automated Recruiter, and it talks about how technology is not just changing how cadastral technicians do their jobs, but how they find those jobs in the first place.
Hold on, AI is involved in finding a job as a map maker. Now this I've got to hear. So AI is choosing who gets hired as a cadastral technician. That's wild.
It's not that far off. It's really changing how recruiters find candidates. Remember we were talking about applicant tracking systems, those ATS things that scan your resume?
Yeah, those things are brutal.
Well, they're getting a serious AI boost.
So it's not even enough to just like have the skills. You've got to know how to make them stand out to a computer program.
Pretty much. And that's where RoleCatcher comes in, because they actually use AI to help you, like, optimize your resume, make those skills pop out to potential employers.
So it's like AI fighting AI for your dream job. I love it. But okay, before we go full on Matrix here, let's get back to the human element of all this.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's guide talked about different career stages for a cadastral technician. What can someone expect as they get more experience? Like, do they just get a cooler measuring tape?
Not exactly. I mean, obviously those measurements are crucial. But what's cool about this field is there's room to grow. So let's say you start as a cadastral technician, right? You're mastering the latest mapping technology. As you get more experience, you could become a supervisor, leading a team.
Okay, from map maker to map making mentor. I like the sound of that. What else?
It doesn't stop there. If you're really into this whole world, you could even go back to school and become a licensed surveyor.
Whoa, so instead of just mapping the boundaries, you're creating them.
Exactly. Shaping the land for future generations.
Talk about leaving your mark on the world. It's amazing how a job that starts with plotting points on a map could lead to, like, designing the landscapes we live in.
It really shows how this career needs both technical skills and creativity. And speaking of creativity, I was surprised that RoleCatcher's guide really emphasized problem solving. It's not just about following the rules, it's about using your knowledge to find solutions to these really complex challenges.
Okay, so what kind of challenges are we talking about here?
All right, so imagine you have to figure out a property boundary in a place that's seen a ton of development. The original maps could be totally outdated. Maybe there's arguments between property owners or even like natural disasters that have literally changed the landscape. It's the cadastral technician's job to sort all that out and create boundaries everyone can agree on.
It sounds like it takes a special kind of person to handle this. Someone who loves puzzles, doesn't mind a little detective work.
And who can explain everything so clearly that everyone involved actually understands.
Exactly. Okay, so we've established that cadastral technicians are like the Sherlock Holmes of real estate. But what about the bigger picture? RoleCatcher also talked about ethics in this field. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
That's a really important point. Technical skills are key, for sure, but so is having a strong moral compass. Because these are the people who are literally drawing the lines,
Yeah.
defining ownership, how land can be used.
There's a lot of power when you think about it like that.
It is. They need to be impartial, objective, and act with integrity, even when things get tough.
It's not just about maps and measurements. It's about fairness, preserving history, making sure things are built on a foundation of accuracy and trust.
Exactly. And I think knowing that your work has such a real impact on people's lives, that's got to be one of the most rewarding things.
Definitely. Now, we talked about some of the challenges, but RoleCatcher's guide made it seem like the job market for cadastral technicians is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, as technology keeps advancing, so does the need for accurate land mapping. The Bureau of Labor Statistics actually projects that these jobs are going to be in high demand over the next decade.
That's awesome for anyone thinking about this as a career. But what about those who might not be as comfortable with the techie side of things? Does RoleCatcher offer any advice for staying ahead of the curve?
For sure. They're all about continuous learning, staying updated on the latest software, going to industry events, even just connecting with other professionals online or at conferences.
It sounds like you never really stop learning in this field.
That's one of the best parts, in my opinion. It's always changing. There's always something new to learn.
Okay, this has been so eye-opening. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of what it means to be a cadastral technician. But we're going to have to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of actually landing one of these awesome jobs, from crafting the perfect resume to rocking that interview. Stick around.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been exploring the world of cadastral technicians, and wow, it's so much more interesting than I thought.
Right. It's this amazing blend of history, tech, problem solving. And it's all about shaping our communities in a really tangible way.
Totally. But let's be real for a sec. Getting your foot in the door for any job, it can be tough. So for our listeners who are ready to ditch the virtual maps and go for the real deal, what advice does RoleCatcher have for actually landing a cadastral technician job?
Well, it all starts with a killer resume, right?
Of course.
But remember we talked about AI and those applicant tracking systems.
Yeah, they're kind of scary. RoleCatcher really stresses that you got to tailor that resume. And not just to the job description, but to the actual software the recruiters are probably using.
It's like you need to outsmart the robots.
Exactly.
But good thing RoleCatcher's on our side. Okay, so besides having a resume that can outsmart a computer, what else helps you stand out?
This might seem kind of old-fashioned, but networking. It's still huge.
Yeah, you can't beat a good old-fashioned handshake, right?
Well, RoleCatcher takes networking to a whole other level. They've got tools for everything. Finding events, connecting with mentors, even just keeping track of your contacts.
It's like having a personal assistant, but just for your career. Okay, but let's fast forward to the interview. Any tips from RoleCatcher on how to really nail it?
Definitely. Remember those interview questions we talked about?
Yeah, they had a ton of them.
Don't just try to memorize the answers. Practice how you're going to say them. Get comfortable talking about your skills and your experience.
Because interviews can be nerve-wracking, even when you know your stuff.
For sure. And here's where RoleCatcher's AI stuff comes in handy again. They have this tool where you can actually record your answers.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and it gives you feedback on everything. Your pacing, your tone, even your body language.
It's like having a personal coach in your pocket. That's incredible.
Hmm.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about the rewards of this whole career path. What are some of the things cadastral technicians find most fulfilling?
Besides the whole doing a good job thing,
Yeah.
I think it's knowing that your work has a genuine impact. They're helping settle arguments, protect what people own, make sure everything's built the right way in the right place.
They're like the unsung heroes of like urban planning and stuff.
Totally. And the coolest part is, as technology gets even more advanced, there's going to be even more opportunities in this field. I mean, we're already seeing drones and AI changing the game.
Yeah.
Who knows what's next?
Right. It's a career with a rich history, and it sounds like its future is even brighter. So for anyone who's up for the challenge, loves tech, and maybe wants to uncover some hidden history along the way, becoming a cadastral technician might be the perfect fit.
Couldn't agree more. With the right resources, a little preparation, you can achieve anything.
I love that. And on that note, it's time to say goodbye to the fascinating world of cadastral technicians. We had a blast learning about all this.
Until next time, remember, the world is your map, and the possibilities, totally endless.
That's all for the deep dive. Don't forget to check out the show notes for all the resources we talked about. And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next deep dive into a new career path.